Hello friends, it's me and today let's watch Game Theory, the Dark Lore of the Mushroom Kingdom from the Game Theorists. Together, let's go. Let's start. Thank you.
Mario's heroes are hiding some dark secrets. Behind their happy-go-lucky facades, behind all of the smiles, behind every Yahoo! Are stone-cold liars,
Yahoo!
traitors, and killers. But with the arrival of Mario Kart World, and as I planned my Ultimate Mario timeline, I figured it would be good to take a trip down memory lane to remind ourselves of who we're really dealing with, as well as where this channel first started. Plus, I've got a bunch of new or updated mini-theories that I'll be sprinkling throughout. So grab a few one-ups, theorists, because you're gonna need them with all the childhoods we'll be ruining today. Matt, take it away.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where we
Oh my gosh, this is so classic. MadPad. Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory.
put the O in Super Mario. Sorry, Super Mario. More like super villain. Because behind those plump cheeks, that bulbous nose, and that 80s porn star mustache is a truly evil man. And let me make it clear. No, that's not a joke. This isn't a psych, fooled you guys moment like we did when we were disproving Mario's communist connections, nor is this mere speculation like when we looked at the franchise's link to staged kidnappings. No, after doing the research, I am convinced that this so-called hero of the Mushroom Kingdom is in fact a murderous, womanizing animal abuser, a cruel, misanthropic sociopath. Do I have your attention now? Get ready to have your worlds rocked, theorists, because this one is going to be a doozy that will forever change how you feel about gaming's biggest mascot. The warning signs were present from the very beginning. Donkey Kong for the arcade featured Mario's first appearance, but even in those early days, something was off. The story, as we know it, goes like this. A giant ape steals Mario's girlfriend and the heroic Italian must get her back. That's it. And it sounds good in theory, but have you ever stopped to consider why Donkey Kong steals the girl in the first place? Of course not. Raised on movies like King Kong and years of damsel in distress fairy tales, we just assume we're the good guys fighting the evil primate to save the girl. But you know what they say about assuming, don't you? It makes an ass out of you and me. Here's the truth. Or rather, the rest of the story. Did you know that Mario was Donkey Kong's master? That he abused the ape, which is why DK broke free and stole away with Mario's GF to get even. Yeah, that's a factoid you don't hear Nintendo trumpeting about their red-clad cash cow. Now, you would be 100% correct in asking me, well, where does it say that Mario is DK's master? The arcade game didn't come with a story, and ports to Atari and ColecoVision give a vague Mario must save the girl plot. Other sources, like Crack.com or Wikipedia, cite the book Geektionary, which I checked out. But here at GT, we try not to rest until we have primary sources. So I dug a little deeper and found this. I give you Donkey Kong Circus from the Game & Watch Gallery, the prequel to the original Donkey Kong, where we see Jumpman's side business, where he just so happens to be running a circus show, and the star attraction, Donkey Kong. DK juggling pineapples and avoiding fireballs, all while balancing atop a barrel. Made to look like a fool, forced to burn his hands, scolded and laughed at when missing a pineapple. Clearly not the proper way for a great ape to be treated. A master willfully putting his pet into uncomfortable situations, physically injuring them with fire, laughing at and humiliating them. Mario's lucky that the Tanuki suit is the only thing that got PETA's attention. Oh, but we've only just begun. If we're talking Mario's predilection for...
Okay, can we just stop and acknowledge that the early versions of the Game Tears video is a bit... yeah, out there.
Animal abuse? We don't even need to troll the obscure reaches of the Game & Watch Gallery. Mario doesn't do much to hide his violent tendencies. In the wake of Donkey Kong, upset at being forced to climb girders for his girl, Mario punishes his freshly captured ape in their next game together, Donkey Kong Jr., where he tears Donkey Kong away from his son, cages him up, and then uses a whip to defend his prize. In the final screen, Mario even whips birds to do do his bidding. But what's worse than his treatment of the adult Kong is his abuse of the younger ape. Think about what we're seeing here. Mario is forcing a baby monkey to cheat death in order to rescue his father. Just look at the utter distress and fear on that poor ape's young face. In the third screen, he uses a lever to actively try to electrocute DK Jr. Let me reiterate that point. Mario, this icon of gaming, paragon of heroism, tries to electrocute a baby monkey for rescuing his father. A father who is put in danger and humiliated in a circus show run by a red-wearing carpenter who wields a whip. This is the behavior that we have ignored and overlooked, dear gamers, and this is the information that Nintendo has been happy to silently sweep under the rug. But
Well, if you phrase it that way, we the players that plays Mario, we are the bad guy? Right?
wait, that's not all. We're pulling all the skeletons out of the closet this time. Mario is an equal opportunity animal abuser. He also hates insects. Take for instance Wigglers, innocent, happy caterpillars that, across the Mario franchise, show absolutely zero intentions of ever hurting Mario. They have daisies on their heads, for crying out loud. And what does our hero do? He ruins their home, not once, but twice, in both Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. Then, after trashing their homes, he proceeds to jump on them, crushing them to death. An innocent creature who did nothing wrong but get upset when his home was violated. From this perspective, Mario is no better than a child burning ants with a magnifying glass, torturing small insects just for fun. And Wigglers are only one of multiple examples. That's not even mentioning creatures like Cheep Cheeps, fish who are just swimming around peacefully, not even attacking Mario, who get targeted, burned alive by Mario's fiery vengeance. But let's cut the guy some slack. Wigglers and the rest are quote-unquote enemies in the game because, you know, Mario's supposedly the hero and stuff. What's inexcusable, though, is his mistreatment of his family and his allies. Take, for instance, the Yoshi. We learn in the beginning of Yoshi's Island that these cute dinos are responsible for saving Mario's life. To recap, a stork drops baby Mario, who, as luck would have it, lands safely on the back of a Yoshi. The rest of the game has a team of Yoshis risking their lives to reunite the baby with his kidnapped brother, then delivering the two back to their parents. A cute story, right? Heartwarming. Gets you right there. Well, fast forward to adult Mario, hopping once more atop his trusted and loyal friend to save the day and... wait, he just punched him. Look again. Mario punches the Yoshis to get them to extend their tongue. You can even see the Yoshi flinch before it happens. He is physically beating this animal to get it to do what he wants it to do. And let's not forget that Mario will drop a Yoshi into a pit without hesitation, just to get a couple extra inches out of his jump. A pit that...
Okay, that one is kind of screwed up. Sorry.
That time and time again has clearly been shown to result in death. Once again, we don't just see animal abuse, we see family abuse. Lest we forget, this is Yoshi, the same creature who had to deal with this and this to keep baby Mario safe. These tender-hearted dinosaurs are practically family, and what do they get? A punch and a pit. Disposable like tissues. If only they had fed that obnoxious baby to a piranha plant, the Mushroom Kingdom would be a happier and safer place. Speaking of abusing family, though, this next one, in my opinion, is Mario's worst sin, his treatment of Luigi. Now, stop for a minute and look at this guy. He's an adorable coward, an awkward wannabe hero who thinks the world of his brother. Look at the way he reacts at the end of Luigi's mansion when he sees his brother is safe. Even though it's told mostly through gestures and goofy sounds, his joy is moving. Without doubt, Luigi is one of the sweetest, most genuine characters in gaming. In Paper Mario, you can read his secret diary, which goes on and on for pages about how much he admires Mario, how much he wishes he could go on these adventures, how he's asked over and over to be included on the next big quest. And what we read is that Mario has crushed those dreams, crushed them like the thousands of Goombas he's crushed under his fat Italian weight, denying his brother any chance of fulfilling his dreams, of living a happy life. But it gets worse than sheer neglect. Look at the ending of New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Luigi flies in, offers Mario and Peach room in his balloon, and then they just fly off without him. They don't acknowledge his existence, they don't thank him, they don't invite him to fly with them, they just flat out ignore him. He is less than the Koopa remnant on the bottom of Mario's shoes. Luigi doesn't get any thanks at the end of Mario is Missing either. After Luigi's completed this quest, Mario just strolls out and stands there. Stands there, no thank you, no nothing, just staring at his brother like, I hope you liked the lamest adventure in our franchise, bro, cause that's the most you're ever going to get. But what's disgusting, and I mean disgusting, is Mario's behavior at the end of Mario Power Tennis. Yeah, we're pulling out the real obscure games to get to the heart of this jacket. Does it sound like I'm fired up? Yeah, cause I'm fired up. I am angry that I have been deceived by this sleazeball plumber for decades, that I have called him a hero, that I have been his fanboy. Here's why. In Mario Power Tennis, if Luigi wins, this is what happens. He celebrates. For once, this perpetual player 2, this second fiddle gets his chance in the spotlight. People are cheering for him. A stadium full of people are celebrating Luigi. He's holding a trophy, and what does Mario do? The brother who Luigi would love the approval of more than anything else, what does he do? Walks up to him, applauding, laughing, slaps him on the back, and then grinds his shoe into his brother's foot, stands there, and grinds it in.
Let's be honest, it sucks. And it sucks more than you think. It's not like on normal situations where this happens. It is on the stage, at the championship, at the place in which he received the medal, in front of everyone. Such disrespect to the victor, to the champion, to the winner is absolutely rude. In front of everyone.
Still smiling, still laughing. He's so unfeeling, so bereft of love or affection for anything or anyone, even his own brother. He's unwilling to let Luigi have even this smallest of victory in a game that no one cares about. And look at Luigi. His moment of glory is ruined. A brother he thought would be proud of him in this moment of victory instead trashes upon it. It flies completely against everything Luigi has ever associated with his brother, and the look on his face proves it. He's confused, he's bewildered, and we should be too. We've been lied to, and if nothing else I've talked about today shows Mario's disturbing, cruel nature, this moment, this willingness to smile in your face while doing something completely awful and selfish,
And not just that, but in front of everyone at that moment in time in which he's celebrating. It's not like a normal mundane situation or occurrence, but at the peak of your life, you know, and you want to celebrate with your family, and your family at the peak of your family pulls you down. Not humbly, but insultingly. It sucks.
knows how evil he is. And you know what? There's more. Lots more. Besides torturing monkeys, besides destroying the homes of animals, beyond beating and killing dinosaurs, and beyond being a cruel, heartless brother, Mario's sins continue. So let's talk for a minute about Mario the Man-whore. Sure, we all know that Princess Peach is Mario's main squeeze now, but it's easy to overlook his flings with other women. Take for instance Pauline. The girl stranded atop the girders in Donkey Kong may appear to have the same fashion sense as the Toadstool Princess, but one look at the promotional box art of our damsel in distress shows us that Pauline is a very different type of gal. Wearing tight, low-cut red dresses, Pauline is certainly a departure from the buttoned-up, kiss-on-the-cheek-prone Peach.
Oh, Mario.
And yes, while Pauline and Mario were in love long before Mario's adventures in the Mushroom Kingdom began, the feelings that drive a man to leap over anthropomorphic fireballs to rescue his lady love die hard. Case in point, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, where after years of absence, Pauline makes her grand return as Mario's quote-unquote special guest. For those of you unfamiliar with this more obscure series, Mario is debuting a new theme park based around his hit toy line, and his VIP guest at the ribbon cutting is Pauline. No signs of Peach anywhere. Now, as a committed man myself, I speak with authority when I say you do not invite another woman as your date to any sort of function ever.
No, you can. Your mother, your grandmother, your daughter. I just list you 3 different individuals. Heck, if you have several different daughters, your daughter, your daughter, your daughter, your daughter, your granddaughter.
Especially if she is a former girlfriend. Later in
Oh! Okay, you mess up.
Land Mayhem, she even gets her own toy modeled after her. There's no Peach toy. And speaking of old habits dying hard, when DK kidnaps her and Mario comes to the rescue, she refers to him as her hero. If there were any more red flags flying in this situation, I'd say that this was a communist conspiracy. Oh wait, and before you leave waves of comments about this being either before or after a Peach Mario celebrity breakup, timelines agree that the MVDK series takes place around the same time as New Super Mario and Super Mario RPG, a point in time when Mario is very clearly committed to the Princess in Pink. And even if you don't believe in Mario timelines, Nintendo has gone on record saying that this DK is an ancestor to this one. So clearly some time has passed with these two maintaining a very close relationship. Sorry, Peach, looks like Mario may be having his cake and eating it too. Aha! But let's not forget Mario's other girl, Daisy. But Daisy is Luigi's girl, I hear you thinking. That's right, I can hear your thoughts. Daisy may be Luigi's girl now, but everyone seems to forget her origin story. Princess of Sarasaland, she made her first appearance in Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. And yes, while the manual and promotional material may bill this as Mario saving just another princess out of the kindness of his heart, there's no denying what you see in the final scene of the game. "Oh, Daisy, Daisy," he cries out when seeing her. Now, I'm sorry, but that's not how a friend greets another friend. Names only get repeated in romantic settings. Need more proof? Boom! That heart tells you everything you need to know about what's going on here. And once again, timelines list this game as occurring right after this. So very clearly, this is still very much a thing. And wait,
To be fair, I'm telling you this from personal experience, okay? Luigi is a kind man. 人善被人欺. Kind people get bullied easily. And the unfortunate thing is, Daisy is Luigi's. As a fellow bro, okay, as a fellow bro, there's a saying in Chinese, 兄弟妻不可欺, okay? Don't bully your brother's partner, you know? You get what I mean.
also means that, once again, we see Luigi getting the shaft. Mario dates a woman, tosses her aside, still expects her to play golf with them, and Luigi is left with the sloppy seconds. The hand-me-downs. The girl apparently not good enough to stay in Mario's little harem, so if Mario's crimes against animals and family aren't good enough, it seems he's also an adulterous plumber who can't keep his plunger in his pants. And while crimes of the heart are indeed serious, his ultimate betrayal is against the very people he's trying to protect. The denizens of the Mushroom Kingdom. Mario is a murderer. Murderer. This hero of the Mushroom Kingdom has killed hundreds, thousands of toads in his quest to save them from the evil clutches of Bowser. Look at the story from the original Super Mario Brothers. Quote, it's here somewhere. The kingdom was invaded by the Koopa, black magic, there we go. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people, aka toads, were turned into mere stones, bricks, and even field horsehair plants, whatever that is, blah-de-blah-de-blah. The only one who can undo the magic is the Princess Toadstool. There you have it. Each and every brick you shatter is someone you were supposed to be saving. And the game takes it one step further, rewarding you for killing them, giving you points for each and every block you smash. Earning points for killing people? That's what happens when you play the anti-hero. Games like GTA, Overlord, Prototype, not Mario Brothers. And if the original games were bad, look at his behavior with Omega Mushroom. Look at his utter lack of concern for anything in his way, knowing full well that each and everything in front of him is an actual resident of the kingdom. He even celebrates his massacre when he finishes. And while we're talking about his murderous tendencies, let's talk for a minute about Mario's preferred method of delivering death: crushing. While the game makes it seem all for fun, it's pretty disturbing when you think about it. In fact, to prove the point, let's get morbid for a second here while I tell you a story. In Southeast Asia, as recently as the late 19th century, a popular form of execution was by elephant. One variation involved elephants trained to crush each and every limb of a prisoner's body that wasn't vital, shattering the arms and legs, letting the victim slowly suffer as long as possible before finally releasing its full weight onto the victim's head and chest, crushing the bones, spraying brains and viscera everywhere. Now, did that make you uncomfortable? Make you cringe? Could you see yourself being repulsed by that sort of thing? Good! Because it's normal for someone to react that way. You know who doesn't? Mario. In fact, he relishes in it, yipping and yee-hawing as he leaps from one flattened corpse to the next. He has no sense of guilt, no sense of remorse. Police officers forced to kill in the line of duty have second thoughts. Soldiers forced to kill on the battlefields often suffer from PTSD. Bad guys or no, Mario should be feeling something, anything other than joy, knowing that he's ending the existence of so many living creatures. You know who else doesn't have any remorse for their crimes? The Joker, Hannibal Lecter, Mr. Hyde, Ted Bundy, Lumberjack Dexter. These are all men with antisocial personality disorder, actual psychopaths, and Mario fits right in. They're all men characterized by their inability to form attachments or have any real empathy for others, despite being charming and personable on the outside. They hold steady jobs, even have families, girlfriends, but can be impulsive and sexually promiscuous. They're manipulative. They learn to mimic emotions, despite their inability to feel them. They appear...
But having said that, there's something called fake it until you make it. Just like how you fake being having a real job, being a real plumber, you can fake having a personality. And after you fake it for a couple of days, weeks, months, years, decades, let's say 99% of your life is being faking it, and you put 100% into faking it, to the point in which, what's the difference between the actual you and the fake you? It's the same you. Like, you actually fake being doing this, and you actually have the proper, you fake doing this to the point in which you actually have a proper certifications, proper experience, proper career path. This fakery becomes real. Fake it until you make it. Granted, kind of difficult to be honest with you. Because the idea of faking it, that means that you are always hiding a mask. Instead of the faking it as in you are still trying out your best, like an internship like that.
They're normal, happy in every sense, and yet they ruthlessly prey on everyone and everything around them, sacrificing their safety, having no remorse for their actions. Deep down, they're arrogant. And to bring it all the way back around to where these two videos first started, oftentimes the first sign of someone with antisocial personality disorder is their cruelty toward animals. Every single crime we've leveled against Mario across these two videos fits into this diagnosis. Animal cruelty, unloving brother, sexually deviant, remorseless murderer. I can definitively say Mario has antisocial personality disorder. Behind that plastered on smile, behind that perpetually happy Hitsame is a monster.
It's me,
A man
Mario!
who's proven himself to be a threat to everything and everyone around him. He is no hero. We just haven't stopped to question him until now. Who would have thunk it? Mario, the most successful, unidentified serial killer ever. In the end though, if you think about it, it makes sense. There was only ever one piece of evidence we really needed to prove Mario's evil intentions. Damn you, blue shells.
Although, Mario's evil escapades don't stop there. Not only is he a nasty piece of work, he's also a lying, cheating fraud. And I'd argue that's much worse. Mario first appeared as Dr. Mario in the titular Game Boy game in 1990. And according to Smash Bros, this was because he decided to have a bash at the whole medicine thing. Now, nobody can just throw on a white coat and become a doctor. To become a licensed physician, you
You need to have years of experience.
have to do 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, and then at least 3 years as a resident. That's 11 years of education. However, we all know Mario as a plumber, and he's been that way since the first Mario Bros game in 1983, meaning he went from plumber to doctor in just 7 years. And given the amount of time he spends saving princesses, racing cars, or being a soldier, I somehow doubt he's putting in the time to graduate, let alone early. Unless, of course, Mario and Dr. Mario are actually two separate people. I mean, they are two separate characters in Smash, plus in the Super Mario Kodansha manga, the two of them physically meet, which is pretty hard to do if you're the same person. Maybe Dr. Mario is the long-lost third Mario brother. But that doesn't mean our main man,
So it's Mario, Luigi, Dr. Mario. Sorry.
Mario gets off scot-free. While he may not be a fraudulent doctor, he absolutely is a fraudulent plumber. To become a plumber, you typically need apprenticeship experience, which on average takes 4 to 5 years. And that's not including any trade school or community college programs, which can add anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. No wonder he was so happy to switch into hero mode so quickly. He needed an excuse, any excuse, in order to get out of doing the job before Peach realized how unqualified he was to clean her pipes.
But now, let's talk about Rosalina. She's a galaxy-hopping princess with a hairstyle stolen straight from Captain Planet's Dr. Blight. And from her humble beginnings in Super Mario Galaxy, she's starting to appear in everything. 3 main series titles, 4 Mario Karts, a party, a round at the links, and pretty soon the newest Smash. Really? Rosalina and like 15 Fire Emblem characters, and Ness still hasn't been confirmed for the game? Get your priorities straight, Nintendo. But outside of she owns a space station and she looks smoking hot in a biker outfit, what do we really know about this monotone maiden? Nothing. She's an interstellar enigma. Or is she? Who is Rosalina? Have there been clues hidden in plain sight as to what her true identity is? Today we're out to solve this maiden's mystery, and what we find throws everything you thought you knew about the Mario universe out the window. Well, except for the fact that he's a sociopath, which is still 100% legit. It seems to me the best place to start is with the bedtime story Rosalina reads throughout Super Mario Galaxy. The story recounts the tale of a sad little girl on a quest to find one Luma's missing mother. Prepare to be shocked, that story is actually about Rosalina herself. What? An earth-shattering revelation, I know. But seriously, where it gets interesting is in chapter 4, when the story mentions Rosalina's mother. Via the book's illustrations, we get 2 glimpses of her. First, from the back, and then again, the bottom half of her face. Do those hair flips, that mouth shape, the gold crown, and those rounded blue earrings look familiar? Because they should. Peach is Rosalina's mother. Cue the dramatic music.
That's not dramatic!
Quite as dramatic as I envisioned, but okay. No, wait, I can read your mind. But the hair is longer and the dress is blue. That's what you're thinking, right? Right? Be honest. Man, I'm like the geeky version of David Blaine. But I agree. These similarities are very superficial and far from 100% confirmation. That's why it's also worth mentioning the silhouette of the castle that appears in chapter 7 of the book, when the little girl in the story looks at her former home through her father's
Mushroom
little
Kingdom.
telescope. Notice the 3 prominent spires with the one big one in the middle?
I know. Mushroom Kingdom.
Seems an awful lot like typical depictions of Peach's castle, no? Since it's in shadow, though, I suppose it could be just any old 3-spired castle with one very tall one in the center. I mean, I hear those are very popular in the Mushroom Kingdom, after all. Hashtag obvious sarcasm is obvious, but if we're going to prove something as huge as Rosalina being the daughter of the first lady of gaming, we need something more than hints. We need something more definitive. We need something scientific. Genes! Ronnie, come on, let's try it again. Genes! Genetics, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Come on, dude, you're ruining my flow. If Peach
Don't forget there's also RNA.
and Rosalina are truly related, they should be sharing some physical features, right? And yeah, I mean, obviously they look alike, but we're the game theorists. We can do one better. We can use genetics to show that there's a high statistical probability that the 2 are related. So let's start with one of Rosalina's most identifiable traits. Her earlobes. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Whether or not your earlobes hang low and wobble to and fro, or are attached to your head, is dictated by a simple dominant-recessive gene relationship. You probably did this stuff in school, right? 7th grade bio-sci, anyone? But to recap, you get one set of genes, or alleles, from your father and one set from your mother. The combination dictates what trait you show. That's called your phenotype. Phenotype for physical. It's what people see. So for earlobes, dangling earlobes are dominant and attached earlobes are recessive. Let's demonstrate that with a big D and a little d. So as an example, let's say that your father and mother both have one big D allele and one small d allele. By creating a chart called a Punnett square that shows all the possible gene combinations the child could have, where he gets one gene from each parent, you see that the child is most likely to have dangling earlobes, because 3 out of the 4 scenarios contain a big D. The big D is dominant or stronger and covers up the little d. But if you have 2 little D alleles, one from mom and one from dad, your lobes will be attached, making it the rarer trait. Which is funny because Rosalina, believe it or not, has attached earlobes. Check it out! And that means both her parents would need to possess the small D allele. But how could we possibly figure out the genetic code of fictional video game characters? I'm glad you asked that. Well, you start by looking at the phenotype. What do Peach's ears look like? Trick is, Peach's ears are normally covered by her ungodly large blue earrings, but Nintendo has been kind enough to show us Peach in her
Yeah, but MacPad.
developmental stages. Baby Peach. Baby Peach doesn't have her ears pierced, and thus we can see that she too has attached earlobes. In other words, she possesses 2 small D alleles, greatly increasing the likelihood that her child would also have attached lobes. And that's not all. Look at Mario, who presumably would be the father. Attached earlobes again, which means that the child of Peach and Mario would have a 100% chance of also having attached earlobes. Rosalina. And that's not all. What about eye and hair color? Now these things work a little bit differently. Both are polygenic, or controlled by multiple genes. Let's focus on eye color. Eye color happens to be controlled by at least 2 separate genes. The first one, OCA2, comes in 2 forms, brown and blue. The second one, called Guy, also comes in 2 forms, but this time it's green and blue. Now the way this works is in a tiered system, with blue alleles being recessive, green being dominant over blue, and brown trumping them all. Here's a chart mapping out all the possible combinations, and as you can see, blue eyes are super rare because there are so many other genes that overpower those small bees. So for Rosalina to have those piercing blue eyes of hers, her parents would also need to, well, somebody call Staples, because that was easy. The fact that both Peach and Mario also have blue eyes means that their child would have a very high likelihood of also having bright blue eyes. Just
I mean, what a coincidence!
like you see in Rosalina. Hair color works in a lot the same way. It's also polygenic. Without getting too detailed, the fact that Peach has blonde hair greatly increases the likelihood her child would also have blonde hair. So to summarize, with genetics, we're talking about statistical odds. And in this case, were Peach and Mario to have a baby, there's a very high likelihood that it would have the same phenotypes that you see in Rosalina. The last huge piece of genetic evidence, though, comes from Rosalina's handedness. Watch all the gameplay footage of her, and you see that she's left-handed. Notice how she prefers to keep her wand in her left hand? In an interesting twist, promotional art for her shows her holding it in her right hand, but I would assume that this is actually the product of the world's right-handed bias. But that's a can of worms for an entirely different day. For now, let's focus on...
Oh, I can say this. Okay, so most of us are right-handed. So let's say keyboard, alright? Right side is the mouse, left side is the keyboard. Even if you are left-handed, by default of how the world works, you have to use your mouse on the right side, even if you are left-handed. So, ambidextrous, yeah.
The genetics. Handedness is weird because it's not like the previous genetic examples. Researchers have no clear predictors that they've been able to figure out. What scientists do know is that consistently, 10% of the world's population is left-handed, and that left-handedness tends to run in families, with the mother's preference being an important factor. On average, the chances of two right-handed parents having a left-handed child are around 10%. Having a right-handed mother and left-handed father keeps that percentage about the same. But having a left-handed mother and right-handed father makes the probability double. Now, looking across games, particularly the sports games, Mario Super Sluggers, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Nintendo's main man is clearly right-handed, no question there. But Peach is actually ambidextrous, good with both her right and left hands, playing baseball and tennis favoring the right, but golfing favoring the left. People born with a left-hand bias at birth are statistically more likely to show ambidextrous qualities later in life. So the likelihood of a couple like her and Mario having a left-handed child like Rosalina is actually greater than most other couples. The only thing that would increase those odds would have both parents be lefties, which increases the probability to 35%. So similar to how we approach TF2's Pyro, not only does Peach match the mother's depiction in the storybook, but statistically speaking, Peach's hypothetical daughter would have a much higher than normal chance of sharing a lot of the same qualities as Rosalina. But there's one final piece to this puzzle. Let's revisit Chapter 7 of Rosalina's bedtime story. We've already talked about the illustrations, but let's talk about the clues buried in the actual text. Quote, "She twisted the knob of the telescope, and the blue dot grew until she could make out a grassy hill dotted with flowers. It seemed very familiar to her. Zooming even closer, a terrace on the hill came into view. She remembered rubbing the sleep out of her eyes as she followed her father up that hill to look at the stars." So we know that Rosalina's home, that castle we saw in silhouette, isn't far from a good stargazing hill dotted with flowers. Galaxy's opening scene has Mario running to the top of a hill that overlooks Peach's castle, meaning it's close enough to walk to, and has a beautiful view of the stars. It also happens to be lined with flowers, just like the hill described in the storybook. And not only does it have flowers, but look at the color of the flowers in the illustration. Purple, white, and yellow. Now look at the flowers on Mario's hill at the beginning of the game. Purple, white, and yellow. Now we're
Blue!
getting somewhere. And there's more. Here's an excerpt from when Rosalina's story takes a dark turn. Quote, "She remembered having picnics with her mother on that hill on bright and windy days, and the girl burst into tears. I want to go home. I want to go back to my house by the hill. I want to see my mother." The girl was shouting now, her face wet with tears. "But I know she's not there. I knew all along that she wasn't out there in the sky because she's sleeping under the tree on the hill." The girl's cries echoed through the stars, and a hush fell over the area. Like a punch to the gut, the story reveals that the girl's mother has been dead and buried the whole time. In a game like Mario where dying in pits of lava or getting sucked into black holes is pretty much par for the course, knowing that there's a character that has died and is buried is just unsettling. It's a bit eerie. But this passage also provides us another clue as to the geography of this hill. There's a single tree on top of it. Find that tree on top of that stargazing hill that's right down the road from Peach's castle and with the yellow, purple, and white flowers, and you've got yourself a slam dunk. So, I played through the beginning of the game again looking to find that tree and didn't. Theory busted.
But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching. I'm kidding, sorry.
Or was it? I remember that the end of the game features one final grand sweeping shot of the landscape around Peach's castle. And would you believe it? At the top of that hill, the hill that Mario just so happens to start the game at, the hill that matches all the qualities we've been looking for so far, what's at the top of that hill? A single tree. Whew, did you feel that? I just got a chill down my spine. All the signs are there. Peach's hair, earrings, mouth, and crown in the illustrations. The genetics contributing to Rosalina's attached earlobes, blue eyes, blonde hair, and left-handedness. And the geography of the stargazing hill with white, yellow, and purple flowers with a single tree on top that Rosalina's mother is buried on. Wait, if Peach is Rosalina's mother, then that would mean Peach should be buried under that tree. How can that possibly happen when, breathing, kidnapped by Bowser, calling for help, promise of future cake. Yep, Peach seems to be at least somewhat alive in Super Mario Galaxy. Well, that's actually the whole premise of the game. The game's ending. Do I need a spoiler alert for a Mario game ending? Like they're always one step above congratulations. So here, spoiler alert for practically every Mario game ever. Peach gets saved and Bowser falls into lava. Say that's probably about like 87% of the games. Clearly we are not playing these games for the epic conclusion, friends. But Galaxy is part of the 13%, sporting one of the most bizarrely cryptic endings to happen since Enslaved on the Xbox. Bowser, Mario, and Peach all get sucked into a cataclysmic black hole, and everything gets destroyed. Look at the way it decimates Bowser's ship. A bunch of baby stars then sacrifice themselves, creating something similar to the Big Bang, which brings to life a whole new galaxy. Rosalina then talks to Mario about the cycle of rebirth, how stardust from dying stars eventually reforms into a new star, and the cycle continues, but with small changes each time. It's like an astronomical version of Groundhog's Day. No two go-arounds are exactly the same. She then tells Mario that he'll see. Mario wakes up and is back in the Mushroom Kingdom, but things are a bit different. You have all the intergalactic characters from the game living on the same planet now. Mario welcomes the new galaxy, pan out, spot Peach's burial tree on the hill, roll credits. So, what happened exactly? That black hole seemed to destroy everything. Everyone is now on the same planet, and Rosalina's closing speech is vague at best. Well, her cryptic dialogue actually explains it all. Mario, Peach, Bowser, and all the rest have just been reborn into a new galaxy cycle. At the beginning of the game, we were playing in a galaxy that had all the characters separated out onto different planets. But in this new, remixed version of the galaxy that was just created by the black hole and baby Lumas, everyone exists on the same planet. The cycle has been restarted, but with the small difference of everyone sharing a planet. You see? Let me put it a different way. True loyal theorists watching this show will remember long ago when I covered the Zelda timeline. There, you had a parallel series of multiverses, each with a small tweak. Link survives in this timeline, dies in this one, and never exists in the third. It would seem Mario's world believes in something similar. Think about it like hitting the reset button on your old NES. Is that a reference that anyone even gets at this point? Anyway, the old NES had a
I do.
reset button. Just go with me here. So you want to fire up a game of Super Mario Brothers on your NES. You hit the power button, the screen flickers, you have to eject cartridge, blow in it, reinsert it, push down, and you hit the power button again, and there you go, the game starts. Now imagine you hit the reset button and start up the game again, but this time the blocks are arranged in a different way, and Goombas and Koopas are showing up in weird locations. Hit the reset button again, and again a new arrangement of the same core pieces. Mario Galaxy is basically working under the philosophy of the galaxy resetting itself, remixing itself every time. Like Rosalina said,
I think it's something called parallel universe, multiverse.
the cycle never repeats the same way. In fact, this idea explains Mario's multiple lives. How can Mario fall into a pit, die, but then have 3 more tries to get it right? It's new iterations of the galaxy each time. It's also an explanation for Mario and Bowser being mortal enemies 90% of the time and cart buddies the other 10%. Or the on-again, off-again appearance of the Koopa Kids. Or where Geno and Mallow went. Please let there be a galaxy iteration where they come back. The game was so good. Okay, but how does this all explain Peach being dead? Easy. Rosalina is Peach's daughter from a previous cycle of the galaxy. Peach had a child, raised her, then died. Devastated, Rosalina flew away only to return and check on her home every 100 years, or every new cycle of the galaxy. It just so happens that the particular cycle featured in this game is one in which she gets roped into the action. Does this seem too metaphysical or too deep? It should,
Or coincidence. Yeah.
because it's the core belief of the game. Anyone who's played the game beyond the Mario missions and has gone through it with Luigi has seen the proof for themselves. With Mario, you have the Rescue Luigi missions, where your clumsy brother gets himself trapped and you need to save him. Great, nothing unusual there. But when you play the game with Luigi and get to those missions again, you expect to be saving Mario only to find that, nope, you're still saving Luigi. It's awkward. The explanation given for this is, well, I guess there's enough people in the universe for one person to look like me. Except what's really going on here is that you're meeting a version of Luigi from a different cycle of the galaxy. If nothing else, this encounter shows that Super Mario Galaxy is a title that bends metaphysical rules. Okay, if Rosalina and Luigi 2 are from previous cycles of the galaxy, how are they so young? How can Rosalina look the same age as Peach if they're mother and daughter? And how can Rosalina revisit her home planet every 100 years or more if she's a normal human with a normal human lifespan? Oh, come on. It doesn't take an Einstein to figure that one out. Well, actually it does. Or at least it did. In 1905, Albert Einstein proposed a theory, a scientific theory, called special relativity. You know E equals mc squared?
But hey, that's just a theory, a scientific theory. Thanks for watching. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Yeah, that's a part of it. It's incredibly complicated stuff, but suffice it to say, it completely changed the course of physics and answered a lot of scientists' lingering questions around time, space, and light. It also, believe it or not, answers how Rosalina and Peach can be practically the same age. One of the consequences of his theory was the concept of time dilation, or the fact that time slows with motion. The faster you move, the more difference occurs, and at speeds close to the speed of light, time practically stops. It sounds crazy, but it's been proven. 2 synchronized atomic clocks were tested. One clock was kept on Earth, while another one was put into a high-speed plane and flown around for a while. When the plane returned, the clock was behind by exactly the amount Einstein's equations predicted. But when they resynchronized the clocks on Earth, they were still running at exactly the same rate. In other words, time had passed slower on the plane because of how fast it was traveling. Time had dilated or expanded. In other words, time travel is proven to be a real thing. Now look at Rosalina's ship. It travels between galaxies at speeds approaching the speed of light. So for her, time moves much slower relative to the time on Earth. In fact, using an online time dilation...
And that's one of the reasons why, even though planetary travel is possible, but the message sent and received is going to be slow. And intergalactical space travel is possible, but you can never receive any. It's forbidden for you to hear anything back or to send anything back. That means once you go to another galaxy, it's goodbye to your loved ones back at your home planet. Yeah.
Calculator, I was able to conclude that 1 year aboard her ship traveling slightly under the speed of light would actually be the equivalent of 100 years of Earth time. So say Rosalina is 20, that's 2,000 years worth of Earth time, and that's a conservative estimate. Einstein, truly you have given the world many great gifts, but none compare with your most recent contribution to society. Proof
that fictional characters are related. But enough science, let's get back to the lore. Did you ever notice that Rosalina never refers to Peach by name? She always calls her Mario's special one. Probably because she feels awkward calling her mom by her real name. Or maybe that was the pet name Mario would use for her when they were together. Sure, it's not quite as compelling of evidence as relativistic physics, but hey, it's something. Now, if you still don't believe me, man, you really have some serious trust issues, because I have proved this thing every way to Sunday. Lore, genetics, physics, I mean, seriously, cut me some slack here. But I'm sure there are still some of you out there who are going to say, oh, you're overthinking the game. Oh, the designers didn't plan this. Well, to disprove every last doubting Wario out there, Yoshiaki Koizumi, that's about as good as I'm going to get at pronouncing that name, the writer of
Nice, not bad, not bad, not bad.
Storybook, said during an interview that Rosalina was originally intended to be related to Princess Peach. There, boom, done. Of course he didn't say how, which prompted the internet to assume that they were sisters, but we now know better. And finally, since I'm not leaving any stone unturned here, there's one last huge piece of evidence hidden in the French version of the game. That's right, we're getting international up in here. Look at the epilogue of Rosalina's story in English. She dedicates her life to the Lumas, vows to revisit Earth every 100 years, and flies away. But the French version of the story has an extra little detail worked in. Everything is about the same, except for the second to last page. It has a little bit more text worked in. Let me brush off my French here as best I can. Retournez sur ma planète bleue, bleu, bleu. My French teacher's gonna watch this, so embarrassed. Here we go, I'm gonna make this super sexy. J'aimerais bien, une fois tu les entends, retourner sur ma planète bleue et m'assoupir sur les genoux de mon papa et cassons cette moustache qui fait sa fierté. That was hot. French language love. So if you didn't spend 7 years learning the difference between a croque monsieur and a croque madame, you could probably figure out the following. My dad, something something, caressing his mustache. But luckily, I spent a couple years butchering the language and coupling that with the power of Google Translate. It says,
Google!
I would like once every 100 years to return back to my blue planet and doze on the knees of my father, stroking the mustache that was his pride. And what you have there, loyal theorists, cut from the English version for some reason, is our last piece of incredibly strong evidence that Mario is Rosalina's father. I mean, I suppose by that logic, the father could also be Luigi, but that would be...
No!
No, it couldn't. Same attached ears, same blue eyes, and he's left-handed, meaning the odds of Peach and Luigi having a left-handed child like Rosalina would be double. Luigi is much taller than Mario, and Rosalina is a towering figure in the Mario universe. And back in the storybook, when Rosalina is describing playing with her brother, the brother is wearing a green hat. It's subtle, sure, but if you look close enough, it's definitely included there on purpose. Then there's the telescope that belonged to Rosalina's father that she takes on her intergalactic journey and appears on the last page of her storybook. Mario is never depicted with a telescope throughout the series, but we know for a fact Luigi has one. He inherited it as part of his mansion. And don't you find it a bit coincidental?
But, technically speaking, they're brothers, right? They share things, they're family, you know? If you inherit something, my brother also by default, you know, share, you know, family stuff. Yeah.
That when you beat Super Mario Galaxy with Luigi and all 120 stars, then collect the secret final star at the end, you're rewarded with a picture of Luigi and Rosalina, father and daughter? You know, when it was referenced in the game that Rosalina and Peach were related, it was Miyamoto himself who pulled the plug on it, insisting the reference be removed. For years, we've been led to believe that Peach and Mario are gaming's it couple, but this whole cover-up would make perfect sense if Nintendo had known all along that Luigi is the one Peach ultimately ends up with. It would also
Hey!
lack of affection for Mario in every game ever. But if that were to get out, it would throw everything we've ever thought about this franchise into utter chaos. Nah, it couldn't be.
could it? Well, we may not know whether Luigi truly is Rosalina's father, but after 10 years, Nintendo does seem to have confirmed at least the first half of this theory, that Peach is Rosalina's mother. One of the things Matt points out in the original theory as a sticking point early on is that Rosalina's mother is depicted wearing a pale blue one-piece gown with bell sleeves, something Peach has never been shown wearing. That is, until the release of Princess Peach Showtime. In this game, Peach gains a bunch of different transformations to help her take part in the various shows happening in the theater. But during the final battle, Peach gains one final transformation, Radiant Peach. She then goes even further beyond and becomes Super Radiant Peach. Now, take a look at this new dress, a pale blue...
Just reminds me of Saiyan, Super Saiyan.
one-piece gown with bell sleeves, just like the original image in Rosalina's storybook. She even has sparkle powers, which are star-shaped, much like Rosalina is the princess over the Lumas and the Power Stars. So I think it's pretty safe to say that this iconic fan-favorite theory is finally confirmed. However,
What's the deal with the Mushroom Kingdom? I get that Princess Peach rules over it, but seriously, where are all the other human beings? And for that matter, why does the Mushroom Kingdom have a human ruler? And then what about royal succession? Princess Peach still isn't a queen, she's a princess. Mario doesn't even seem close to becoming a prince, and as weirdly suggestive as her sweet little notes can be construed, it really doesn't seem like either of them are putting much work into making a little Mushroom Kingdom heir. And for that matter, what's Bowser's deal? Why is he, demonic lord of the Koopas, so intent on kidnapping this lousy princess instead of getting it together and cranking out a straight military victory? The point is, something awful fishy is definitely going on here, but this time I submit to you that we're not looking for a flat-out villain. No, that would be too obvious. This time our person of interest is someone secretly nefarious, someone coasting along while the heavies take all our attention. Slide on those vests and pull up your diapers, because I'm talking about Toad. What is Toad? Or more accurately, what are toads? Why do they all look the same and yet Peach, their ruler, looks nothing like...
Wait, can I just say the cosplay just now was on point?
But seriously, where are all the other getting it together and cranking Toad? What is Toad? The point is, something awful fishy is definitely going on here, but this time I submit to you that we're not looking for a flat-out villain. No, that would be too obvious. This time our person of interest is someone secretly nefarious, someone coasting along while the heavies take all our attention. Slide on those vests.
Yeah, his cosplay is on point. It's just on point. The hat, vests, white pants. Finish. Awesome.
And pull up your diapers, because I'm talking about Toad. What is Toad? Or more accurately, what are toads? Why do they all look the same and yet Peach, their ruler, looks nothing like them? Well, would you believe me if I said that they're a parasitic life form that took over the bodies of the Mushroom Kingdom's original citizens? No, I don't blame you. Those gravelly voiced bubbleheads don't look too threatening after all. It seems like a pretty extreme claim, but give me the next 10 minutes of your life and I may just change that attitude. Let's look at the facts. Mushrooms play a very prominent role in the Mario franchise, and Toad's design is just another reflection of that. I mean, seriously, he has a mushroom growing out of his head. And before you call me out on it just being a hat, yes, he removed it in the TV series, but that's a non-canon source. In the games, it has always been firmly planted on his head, no matter how fast he's running, being shot out of a pipe, or whatever. Why is that important? Well, there's a real-world fungus that grows out of your head and can control your mind and body. Pretty terrifying, right? Well, I believe that whatever the fungi known as Toad actually is, it behaves a heck of a lot like a mutated strain from the genus Cordyceps. If you've played The Last of Us, you can get an idea of what I'm talking about, but for those of you who prefer cold hard facts to half-reference 2-year-old video games, Cordyceps in nature is famous for infecting things like ants. The fungus exerts control over the mind of the host, forcing it to an environment with the proper temperature and humidity for its growth, as well as the optimal wind conditions for the spread of its spores. For ants, this often means climbing up and attaching themselves to the side of a plant, but for the toads, this would mean any number of dark, moist, out-of-the-way places, which, surprise, is very often exactly where you find them, huddled together in groups, or all by themselves, just sort of standing there, waiting. Then it starts to send out little threads called mycelia. As its mycelium threads slowly replace the body of the host dies, and the spore-bearing fruit body emerges, often near the head. Sound like some NPCs you may know and love? So how do you like them apples? I mean, them fungi. So I know what you're thinking. Man, nature is scary. And yes, it is. It's like a Fox show from the early 90s, when fungi attack. You're also probably thinking that if the people themselves weren't mushroom-like until they were body snatched, then why is it called the Mushroom Kingdom in the first place? Well, there's an easy answer to that as we turn to the original manual for Super Mario Bros. The manual introduced the Goombas, or should I say the little Goombas, as mushrooms who betrayed the Mushroom Kingdom, implying that the Mushroom Kingdom is actually their homeland, and that it's the Goombas who were the land's namesake in the first place. And before you start yelling at me about Goombas actually being chestnuts because their Japanese name is Karibo, Takashi Tezuka, assistant director and game designer for Mario 1, in an interview with Satoru Iwata, confirmed that no matter what you think, Goombas are, in fact, based off shiitake mushrooms. Assistant director and game designer. That's a primary source, my friends. So if this is their kingdom and they're getting displaced from it, it would be natural they would want to defect to Bowser if it meant getting their homeland back. It might also explain why one of Bowser's core troops are so weak. They're not really fighters at all. They're just refugees of war, victimized by the Toads, and they're doing anything in their power to get back home. Skeptical? Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, mind-controlling mushrooms? Yeah, okay.
You will cut.
But I wouldn't present you with this theory if there wasn't more. Remember that mycelium I mentioned earlier? Those thin fungal threads that slowly replace the host's flesh? Well, they serve another important purpose in real life too. Crisscrossing through the soil, connecting plants and fungus to a vast natural underground fungal internet. Seriously, mushrooms are scary, my theorists. Around 90% of land plants are in some sort of beneficial relationship with fungi, and it's through this subterranean mycelial network that these organisms can do anything from helping out their neighbors by sharing nutrients and advantageous information to sending toxic chemicals to sabotage an unwelcome invading force. Let me re-emphasize that. This is a fungal thread network connecting 90% of the world's plant life. It's like the Ethernet for plants. It's extremely beneficial for pre-existing flora to be plugged into this network. It even boosts their immune system. So it's no stretch to imagine that in the Mushroom Kingdom, where the fungi have achieved sentience, that the natural internet would do much more, making the landscape seem almost alive. Which sounds totally crazy at first, until you realize that all those weirdly shaped Mushroom Kingdom hills really do have eyes. Which, when you think about it, is much scarier than the movie by the same name. And if you're thinking I'm relying on a retro game and an old poorly translated manual for all my evidence here, think again. We recently had a game focused entirely on Toad, and it revealed a lot. In a recent GameSpot interview with producer of Captain Toad Koichi Hayashida, he explained that toads don't have genders in the way that we think of them. He also went out of his way to confirm that Captain Toad and Toadette aren't romantically involved in any way. So why are we celebrating two video game characters not getting it on? Well, glad I asked. Most fungi reproduce using spores in an extremely non-sexual process that involves around 36,000 different genders. Facts that directly parallel how Hayashida described the toad's behavior.
Yep, so the next time when someone asks you how many genders are there, alright, you can just say 36,000. What? Oh, you didn't say humans! If it's humans, it has been proven time and time again. If you actually ask archaeologists, ask biologists, too.
Toad and Toadette were having a bunch of in the old cart garage, boom, our theory would be busted. Instead, we get confirmation that the toad species doesn't act that way. It's almost as though each coloration and variety of toad is like its own sex. Hundreds to thousands of different toad genders, just like the real-life shrooms. And if that's not enough, in the same interview, Hayashida confirmed that toads aren't mushrooms at all, stating, quote, "This particular riddle might stay unsolved. That's one of the great mysteries of the Mario universe," end quote. Oh yeah? Never thought anyone would put together that toads were brainwashed husks, controlled by mushrooms operating a vast fungi intelligence network? Huh. Well, think again. Need more proof? Remember those mycelium we've talked about twice now? The fungus internet? Well, recently, mycologists, that's fancy talk for mushroom professors, have discovered a method for drying out mycelia and mixing it with other natural compounds to create a self-growing building material that's stronger than concrete. In fact, in 2014 at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, they erected a tower made of these exact blocks. It's awesome, and it looks really neat, but turning mushrooms into bricks. Where have we heard that one before?
Oh!
Yeah, that's exactly what Bowser did to the people of the Mushroom Kingdom way back in Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Now, if we crack open the old manual again, we can see that, yes, it explains Bowser's first plan was to, quote, transform all the mushroom people into things like rocks, bricks, and horsetail plants, thus causing the Mushroom Kingdom's downfall, end quote.
Yep. What a coincidence.
Still not convinced? Well, good for you. You should always question things people tell you. But take a look at this. The rocks and bricks make pretty good sense right away. We already know what the deal is there. But what about this weird horsetail plant thing? What are those? Pretty weird thing for the manual to specifically mention, right? You might even think it was some kind of translation error, but nope, it appears in both the Japanese and English versions. And then you start doing research, and you begin realizing that horsetail plants are a real thing. In fact, horsetail plants are often used in farming.
Wait, so just now that was 餐厅, correct? Which is dining room.
Weird thing for
Dining
the manual to
place.
specifically mention, right? You might even think it was some kind of translation.
Translate server error. 餐厅 meaning dining room or dining location. Sorry. Dining venue, dining place.
Error, but nope.
AKA restaurant.
It appears in both the Japanese and English versions. And then you start doing research, and you begin realizing that horsetail plants are a real thing. In fact, horsetail plants are often used in farming precisely because the plant's high silica content effectively stops fungal growth. A plant that stops mushrooms from growing. From that one bizarrely specific detail in the manual, we instantly can understand that Bowser is trying to stop the spread of some fungus. A toad fungus. Imagine you're Bowser. You rule your own kingdom. You are King Koopa. Everyone living beneath you is pretty happy doing whatever they're doing, when all of a sudden there's a tiny little knock on your castle door. Help, help! The thousands of tiny little Goombas say, "Our kingdom is being overrun by a parasitic fungus." Now, normally you wouldn't carry out an act of war against a neighboring kingdom, but partly because you don't want it spreading to your own kingdom, and partly because you don't want to deal with thousands of useless little shiitake drones at the gate, you do everything you can to eradicate this fungus menace. From repurposing the invaders into environmentally friendly masonry, to planting horsetail plants as a countermeasure to keep them from coming back, and even securing the royalty next door in your castle until the plague passes, so she doesn't get infected. It's actually a pretty upstanding and logical thing for Bowser to do, but then greedy old Mario shows up, hungry for his cake, or his kiss, or whatever. He touches your axe that makes the bridge fall. Why do you keep that thing around, Bowser? And boom, you fall
That's such a good point. Why?
into the lava, and suddenly you're the bad guy for all times. Mario, the guy who in the manual is described as, quote, the hero of the story.
Maybe.
What an odd thing to say. Sure, we may make a big deal about Bowser being a bad dude and everything, but history is written by the winners, Internet. And if you're a good player, that winner is you. And Mario. And Peach. Which brings up one last question. Where does Peach fit into all this? Why isn't she infected? Well, you already know the answer. I showed it to you a few minutes ago. Toad, the mushrooms, serve the princess. The American manual changes it to say, quote, serves in the court of the princess, end quote, but a direct translation of the Japanese just says that the toads serve her. And we see in Smash Brothers that she's very adept at using toads to get what she wants. Ever wonder how an airhead who can't tell whether or not she's won a kart race can maintain control of a kingdom? Cordyceps. One word, cordyceps. Peach is the one who brought the toads to the Mushroom Kingdom in the first place. That's why they all worship her, and that's why in the US for 8 years she went by another name, one that tipped us all off to a grand scheme from the very beginning. Peach's other name, Princess Toadstool.
Ah, good old reliable Toad, character that needs no introduction. Someone who's been around since Super Mario Bros. Back in 1985. A friend who's always there to knock himself out with his own trophy, show off his washboard abs, and slap Mario because his wife left him. Normally, I would follow up that sentence with context around the random stuff I just referenced, but honestly, even with the context for those 3 moments, it's just so weird. For a while, it seemed like Nintendo was just happy palette swapping Toad to infinity. Makes sense. He's an endlessly versatile character. Need a partner for Blue Toad? Boom! Yellow Toad. 2 completely different characters, we swear. But then Nintendo introduced Toadette. Toadette was pink. Toadette had distinctive pigtails. Toadette had the whole "et" thing at the end of their name. All of it seemed to indicate that Toadette was meant to be the feminine counterpart to Toad, until an interview said differently. An interview from Mr. Mario Maker himself, Shigeru Miyamoto.
When we made the original Toad, we didn't really have in mind whether Toad was a boy or a girl. Ever since Toadette has started appearing in games, I think people have come to take the impression that Toad was a boy because Toadette was a girl. Obviously, there's lots of different Toads that have been in a lot of different games.
He leaves it open-ended, and by saying, we never thought about it, the hope is that the discussion can just move on, because if he doesn't know, then does it really matter? No, actually, it doesn't. None of this matters. It's a fictional mushroom monster in a game where a giant dragon turtle go-karts with you. But I specialize in things that don't matter. It's an unsolved gaming mystery that I'd like to get a definitive answer on. So the question remains, if Toad and Toadette are canonically neither male nor female, what are they? The obvious answer here is that they're a mushroom of some kind. They look like a mushroom and they live in a place called Mushroom Kingdom, so seems like a fairly reasonable logical leap to make. In an old theory of ours, we actually use this quote from Koichi Hayashida, producer of Captain Toad, which implies that the two are at least very close. Quote, while toads may be mushroom-like, it's unclear just how closely related to mushrooms they are. The resemblance in nomenclature is too uncanny not to wonder. So, are they or are they not mushrooms? Well, in the manual for the original Super Mario...
I think that is a very clever move, because if you make it unclear, future games can clear it up, meaning there will be future games.
Brothers, the mushroom retainers, as they were known back then, are described as, quote, mushrooms who originally served in the court of Princess Toadstool. In Mario Sports Mix, Toad has a special ability that allows him to grow and manipulate mushrooms out of the ground to disrupt the other players. This lines up real nicely with what we see real-life mushrooms doing when it's time to reproduce, which kinda makes the appearance in the game a bit awkward. We also have Peach's special move from the Super Smash Brothers series to go off of. She whips out her Toad, no, that's not a euphemism, and it releases what I always thought to be a cloud of dust, but reading the in-game description is actually meant to be fungal spores, just like mushrooms are known to do. Looking at descriptions of the move in the PAL version of Smash 4, we get this, quote, holds Toad in front of you. If he gets hit, he spreads spores that deal damage. Toad's spores will put attacking foes to sleep, not a counterattack. Always spread spores that deal a small amount of damage. And lastly, Nintendo has gone on record saying that the big white and red thing on Toad's head is in fact part of his head and not just a hat. Sorry, Super Mario Bros. Super Show, this one ain't gonna fly. Literally. Based on everything we know, I have to call it. Toads are advanced forms of mushrooms. The games are already filled with sentient plants after all, so it's not all that crazy. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, you know? So, by determining that Toad and Toadette are both mushrooms, or at least an advanced version of the sort, we can start looking at real-world mushroom mating patterns to get more context to our diaper-wearing buddy and his palette-swapped pal. Broadly speaking, most fungi reproduce in one of two ways. They can reproduce asexually, where one fungus buds off and splits into two identical copies, or they can reproduce sexually, similar to how humans and other animals do it. To do this, mushrooms will release spores into the air that settle on the ground and begin to grow into root-like structures called hyphae. These hyphae continue to spread on the ground and send out chemical signals to any suitable mates, letting them know that they're ready to get their fungi freak on. If two compatible hyphae meet up, then they fuse together to grow and become a fully fledged mushroom. Now, Nintendo has never come out and said how these characters reproduce for, obvious reasons, but we can figure it out. You see, for as cool as it be to say that toads reproduce by splitting into copies, the games never actually give us any evidence to suggest that. What we do tend to see are two toads coming together to get married and start families. There's a love-struck couple found in the streets of Toad Town in Paper Mario. We find a family living together in Super Mario RPG, married couple with kids. In the same game, there's one toad named Raz who talks about him and his beloved Rainy getting married. The evidence in the franchise seems to be leaning heavily towards the idea that these mushrooms, including Toadette, can be romantically involved and get married. Does that necessarily mean that they're reproducing sexually? No, but it certainly seems to imply it. So that's it then? Toads and Toadettes are mushrooms that reproduce sexually and are therefore coded as male and female? Not quite. Fungi don't play by our rules, so we can't think about them using the human ideas of sex and gender. A mushroom's biological sex, which biologists refer to as mating types, are determined by a set of genes found in their DNA called MAT genes. Still haven't found the matching PAT genes yet, but they're working on it. And unlike in humans,
Madman!
where biological reproduction requires some combination of X and Y chromosomes, the MAT genes in fungi lend themselves to even more options for mating types. Just how many mating types, you ask? Well, it depends on the fungi that you're talking about. Some can have 2, others can have 20,000. Therefore, whatever specific mating types toads and toadettes are depends on the type of mushroom they are. The first thing that
So next time someone asks you, how many genders are there? 20,000! Yeah! And then it's like, what the? You didn't say humans? 2.
comes to mind is that they're whatever kind of mushroom the super mushroom is. And at this point, it's pretty well known that the real-life inspiration for the original super mushroom was a type of fungus called the fly agaric mushroom, with its red cap and white spots appearing all across pop culture in things like the Smurfs and movies like Fantasia. It's pretty hard to deny the resemblance between the two. But the fly agaric is also a psychedelic mushroom, one that could make, say, an overall-wearing plumber think he's saving a princess from an evil turtle named Bowser. Side note, fly agaric is also poisonous, so don't go looking for those things out in the wild. However, for as easy as it would be to connect the two, it would also be incorrect. Super mushrooms have white spots on a red cap. Toad, from the very beginning, has been shown to be the complete reverse. Red spots on a white cap. This is critical because color is very important in the fungi world. It's the difference between dining on something that's delicious and something that's deadly. So are there any mushrooms out there that can match our desired color scheme that also reproduce via sexual reproduction? Dear theorist, after literal hours of scouring through just catalogs of mushrooms, I found the one that fits the bill. Introducing Hydnellum pecii, also known as the strawberries and cream fungus or the bleeding tooth fungus. This is one you do not want to eat, not because it's poisonous or anything, but just because it has a woody cork-like texture. Look at it, white cap, red spots. And that's not all. Look at how it ages. It begins to develop a beige color with brown spots, just like another elderly toad that we know about. So if toads and toadettes are meant to be related to the Hydnellum, how many mating types does it actually have? We don't know. No one has coughed up enough coin for researchers to look into it. Apparently, the number of mating types of a random mushroom in the Pacific Northwest doesn't qualify as important enough for the benefit of mankind, which is something that I only learned after hours of Googling how many sexes do mushrooms have, which let me tell ya, took me to some weird places. Rule 34 is in definite effect for the mushroom world. I need to go scrub my search results with bleach. So if
Let's stay wholesome, fair, friendly, thank you.
science doesn't have the answer, video games must. Going back to Paper Mario and Super Mario RPG, you notice anything that might help us differentiate between the toads? Look at the couples that we pointed out earlier. Each couple is formed from 2 different colors of toad. Each color has to be its own mating type. I mean, there are plenty of animals that do exactly this, using sight as a means of identifying members of their own species, knowing which mates are going to produce the best offspring. Having toad's color correlate to mating type would serve as a quick way of rooting out who their potential sweetheart is meant to be. And with that, we we finally have our answer. After nearly 20 years, we've finally figured out who Toadette is in relation to Toad. They're not Toad's girlfriend, they're not Toad's boyfriend, they're just Toadettes. In fact, each of the different Toad colors that we see throughout the Mario franchise is likely to be their own specific mating types. You can have a red Toad and a Toadette reproduce, a blue and a yellow Toad, a green and a purple. The possibilities are endless. Well, not quite endless. You guys know me, I had to do the math on this. I had to do the impossible. I had to do what science had failed to do out in the real world. I had to figure out how many possibilities of Toad there are. Currently, there's no Pokedex for Toads that shows every color that's ever existed, so we made one. We went step by step through every Mario game where Toad appeared.
No.
88 total games, and we cataloged each and every single unique color that we could find. And I can tell you now that the total number of Toad mating types is, drumroll please,
Oh, let me try.
53. 53 differently colored Toads and Toadettes across the entire franchise, each one capable of mating with any other color, meaning that there are actually 1,378 different possible Toad couples across the Mario franchise. So don't worry, my dear sweet little Toad, if Toadette's not your match, there are plenty other fish in the sea, or mushrooms in the kingdom, I guess.
And speaking of the Mushroom Kingdom, it turns out our wonderful Princess Peach may have been lying to us about this place the entire time. How? Why? Well, take a look at her title again. Princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, which, when you stop to think about it, is a little weird. By definition, a kingdom is supposed to be ruled by a queen or king. A place ruled by a prince or princess is actually known as a principality. Now, there was a Mushroom King back in Super Mario Bros., but he's been missing in action since 1996. So, for almost 30 years, Peach has been the only ruler. But why does this matter? It's her land, she can call it whatever she wants, right? And Mushroom Kingdom does sound better than Principality of the Shrew. Well, the issue isn't with us, it's the neighbors. By calling yourself a kingdom when you're not a kingdom, you're essentially declaring yourself as more superior than you actually are, which other kings and rulers may not like so.
To be fair, I'm not too sure though. What's the difference between kingdom and principality? Both are sovereign territories, right?
Much, especially if you insist on everyone calling it a kingdom when it's just not. And as history has taught us, that disagreement inevitably leads to war. And remind me what the main issue to the Mushroom Kingdom is? Oh yeah, being invaded by King Koopa, putting Peach in her place and proving his status above her quote-unquote kingdom. So girl better hurry up with that coronation or people are gonna realize that Princess Peach has been lying to us. But now,
It's time to talk about everyone's favorite D-tier Smash fighter, Yoshi. Perhaps
Yoshi!
the single most inconsistent character in the Mario canon. I mean, Mario, always the hero in red. Luigi, always the scaredy cat in green. Toad, always obnoxious. But Yoshi, I mean, he is all over the place. Sometimes he has a saddle. Other times that saddle is actually a shell. Sometimes he can talk. Other times he just says his own name like a reject Pokemon. 3 fingers,
Yoshi!
4 fingers,
Yoshi!
wall fingers. It is everywhere. Heck, can we even be sure his name is Yoshi? Because guess what? In 1995, it was translated as Yossi. Yossi! I mean, the games tell us that he's meant to be a dinosaur, but is he even that? So today I wanted to answer the question, what the heck is a Yoshi exactly? We're looking at their behavior and their biology to determine exactly what they are. Are they dinosaurs? And if so, what sort of dinosaur are they? And along the way, we may just come up with the solution for how he became the long-tongued, egg-pooping green machine of death that we all know and love. Who knows? Well, the answer to that one is me. I know, and the answer is yeah. We're gonna answer those by the end of this episode, so stay tuned. It's a good one. For the anti-Nintendo viewers out there, all you guys coming from the FNAF and Minecraft fandoms, Yoshi was introduced in Super Mario World back in 1990 and has been in 101 games since that time, ranging from the NES all the way to the most recent Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, which, come to think of it, is kind of a weird piece of history at this point. The Olympics are pushed back to next year, which means that the only official Olympic Games of 2020 are going to be a competition between two fictional game universes. I wonder if they're going to re-release that for next year. Anyway, according to Nintendo Official Magazine, the inspiration for Yoshi began with a little lizard creature named Tamagon, star of the 1984 64 game Devil World. You know, that beloved Nintendo franchise where you descend down into H-double hockey sticks and use crosses to defeat the devil wearing his red Speedo. Yep, that green little dinosaur right there carrying the Bible, that is our earliest version of Yoshi. So from that holy beginning of being humanity's savior, Yoshi kinda downgraded. And in his first official appearance in Super Mario World, he basically functioned as little more than a cute mount for swallowing Goombas and being sacrificed mercilessly into lava pits. But he quickly became a favorite, spin-off titles and even a starting position in the Smash franchise. He's iconic for inhaling just about anything and turning them instantly into an egg, including babies. Yep, he can even eat Baby Mario. Revenge and babies never tasted so good. So what exactly is this baby-eating reptilian? Well, in the original Japanese version of Super Mario World, Yoshi writes us a letter in the message box just outside of his house. He signs it Super Dragon Yoshi. Supporting the idea that Yoshi here is a dragon instead of a dinosaur is the fact that there are dragon coins hidden throughout the stages in this game. Coins that, wouldn't you know it, have Yoshi's face on them. That said, those are really the only two major instances of Yoshi being considered a dragon.
Okay, so to be fair, let's say in Chinese language, okay, the word for dinosaur is literally called 恐龙, right? Fearful dragons. That is the word for dinosaur in Chinese language. So, you get the point.
Pretty much every other media item since then, he's considered a dinosaur. In Smash Bros. 64, his trophy reads, quote, Yoshi is the friendly dinosaur. In Melee, again, quote, Yoshis are gentle, fleet-of-foot dinosaurs, end quote. And going back to that original appearance in Super Mario World, both the English and Japanese have the setting of the game as Dinosaur Land, with Yoshi listed as a young dinosaur in the original manuals. It's also worth noting that most, if not all, the enemies in Mario games can be simplified into an animal or plant inspiration. For instance, all the other residents of Dinosaur Land, Reznor, Rex, and Dino Rhino, all of them have clear counterparts in IRL prehistory. Reznor, duh, it's a Triceratops. Though the name of Rex might make you think that this guy is a T-Rex that Miyamoto slapped some wings onto and called it an enemy, the design is actually riffing on the Ceratosaurus. They both have horns on their snouts, walk on two legs, have teeth that hang out of their mouths, and were likely two-toned from their belly to their back. Heck, Rex's height in-game even matches the real-life height of the Ceratosaurus, just slightly over that of a fully grown man. Lastly, the Dino Rhinos are pretty clearly Protoceratops, albeit a little bit larger, with its stocky quadruped body, hornless head, and bird-like little beak. So where does this leave Yoshi then? It doesn't really have any defining traits that clearly harken back to dinosaurs that we know about off the top of our heads, so what is it exactly? Well, let's start by defining Yoshi's characteristics. Yoshi is oh so taller than Mario at 175 centimeters, established in an earlier video, with smooth green skin along his back and a white underbelly, red spikes along the spine that lead to his shell, which was originally a saddle, so I'm gonna take that one with a grain of salt. Speaking of eggs, Yoshis are born from a hard shell egg, as shown in its hatching animation in Super Mario World for the SNES. Note the egg cracking and it's chipping away. Its head is very large, especially around the nose. He has a thick, stocky tail, and the species can be found in all sorts of climates throughout the Mushroom Kingdom, from scorching deserts to freezing tundra. And last, but certainly not least, we have Yoshi's long, prehensile tongue that it uses to snatch up Bowser's underlings. So with that arsenal of information, we can quickly and systematically narrow down what Yoshi is using. Drumroll, please.
Let me try.
Ooh, drum rolls in the same episode. Very special. I should probably get to what I'm about to reveal, which I guarantee is going to be underwhelming. Cladistics! The classification of animals and plants according to the characteristics that they have in common. Come on, guys, that is totally worth a drum roll. You remember cladistics from school, right? Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, and all that? Well, if you've forgotten it, or you never learned it because no one's learning from any of the online classes that are going on right now, here's the place that you won't forget. Drunken kangaroos punch children on family game shows. Or, you know what, there's always...
What? Okay.
The classic, Dear King Philip came over for great sausage. Think you can replace that with the appropriate word, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyway, we're all this is gonna do is let us narrow down what Yoshi is so we can put him alongside the appropriate similar creature. Just to cover our bases, I'm gonna start with the highest level of classification. Yoshi is eukaryotic, meaning that its cells have a membrane-bound nucleus, placing it under the domain of eukarya. Its kingdom is Animalia, since it's a multicellular animal, and it must be in the phylum Chordata because Yoshi has a backbone. Now, those are three super broad classifications, but in those three quick steps, we've already eliminated about 97% of all animals on Earth. That really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Philosophy aside and phylogeny back on the table, we now get into the segments of classification that are based on physical traits and characteristics. We established before that Yoshi is a dinosaur, so that puts him in the class of Sauropsida, the classification where you find reptiles and birds. From here, things start to get a bit dicey though. There are two orders that we can put Yoshi into, Saurischia or Ornithschia, meaning lizard-hipped or bird-hipped respectively, and as you can imagine, this is based off the structure of the animal's pelvis. Really, the difference boils down to the placement of the pubis. The pubis, not... this bone right here, the pubis bone. But how do we possibly...
Yeah! YouTube algorithm!
check out Yoshi's pubis placement? Well, when it comes time to look at the skeletons of fictional video game creatures, there's only one place to turn to: Super Smash Bros. 64 and Pikachu's shock ability. Oh, that's horrific. Yoshi not only doesn't have a pubis, he literally doesn't have a pelvis. He is completely comprised of ribs, apparently. Just a big old walking rib cage. So, okay, maybe Nintendo hasn't really given us an official, accurate read on the state of Yoshi's skeletal system, so we're gonna need to tackle this problem a different way. The order Ornithschia is comprised of the ornithopods, Marginocephalia, and Thyreophora. Now, don't worry if those words mean nothing to you. I'm barely holding their pronunciations together myself. I literally just looked up how to pronounce them all just so I didn't butcher them completely. I'm just gonna simplify it for you. Ornithopods are dinosaurs that primarily walked on two legs, ate plants, and have a little beak like the iguanodon or the Dryosaurus. Marginocephalia are pretty much the dinosaurs with funny looking skulls, the bony frills on the back of their head like a triceratops, or that little ring that you see on those ramming guys that always appear in the Jurassic Park movies. Those guys, by the way, are called the Pachycephalosaurus, and they always make me think that they have a bald spot on the top of their head, right? Like, whoops, someone forgot to put their toupee on. And lastly, there are the Thyreophorians, which mean shield bearers. These are the guys with body armor, like the Ankylosaurus and the Stegosaurus. And looking across all three of these categories, Yoshi doesn't fit any of them. He doesn't have a beak or any sort of weird skull extensions outside of that enormous nose of his, and he doesn't have any sort of scaly body armor. So by process of elimination, he's pretty solidly in the Saurischia order, which itself is broken down into two main suborders. Sauropods, the massive long-necked dinosaurs like the Brontosaurus, definitely not Yoshi, and the Theropods, carnivorous bipedal dinosaurs like the T-Rex and the Allosaurus, known for walking fast on their two legs, eating meat, and using grasping clawed fingers. I don't think I need to really discuss this any further. Yoshi's order is Saurischia, and his suborder is Theropoda, hands down. What also helps support this idea is that Nintendo's official name for the Yoshi dinosaur, his scientific name, is T. Yoshisaur Munchakoopas. What does that T stand for? No one really knows. Nintendo's never come out and said it, but I'm gonna say it right here. I think that the T actually stands for theropod. Theropoda Yoshisaur Munchakoopa. It actually works. It would be his official scientific name. So let's recap here. Kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Sauropsida, order Saurischia, suborder Theropoda. We are almost there. Now all we need is his genus and his species. So up until now we've been focused on the little things, right? Yoshi's cells, his hips, his pubis. Now we just need to look at the big picture. Common traits across every Yoshi include that huge honker on his face, the frills down his back that are always red no matter what his skin color, a height roughly the size of an adult man, and boots. So all we really need to identify Yoshi is to find an IRL dinosaur in the Theropoda suborder with red spines, a big nose, a height around 175 centimeters, and a set of permanent footwear. And after scouring the entire encyclopedia of dinosaurs, I think I have it. Yoshi's closest dinosaur
No way.
is none other than... Can I get a drum roll, please? Okay, 3 drum rolls in the same episode. Overusing an editing trope for dramatic purposes, and also comedic effect. But seriously, this is getting kind of obnoxious, so let me just say it. It's the Monolophosaurus, a medium-sized bipedal carnivore that lived in western China during the Jurassic period. It's known for the single crest on its skull, giving the front of its face a rounder, more bulbous feel, just like our little Yoshi. It's thought that the crest might have intensified its mighty roar. Mighty roar indeed. Height-wise, they're a perfect fit, with the Monolophosaurus standing almost exactly at 1.75 meters in height, which is exactly where Yoshi sits. It was also known to be very communal, hunting in packs, much like we see with the Yoshis living together and building a society together. The area where Monolophosaurus was found also showed signs of ancient water, leading researchers to believe that these dinosaurs lived near the shores of lakes and oceans, which again, look at where Yoshi's house is in Super Mario World, right on the water line. And the fact that they have a whole island of Yoshis in the next game. Just want to be clear here, I'm not saying Yoshi is a Monolophosaurus, but based off all the evidence as it's been presented, it's extremely likely to be a distant relative of the Monolophosaurus. Which brings me to the biggest problem in all of this, right? What about the multicolored skin, the long tongue, the whole omnivore thing, and the egg laying? Well, I think all of this actually has an explanation under the Monolophosaurus angle. Yoshi's island is surrounded by water, right? So let's assume some Monolophosauri, got stranded on that island. And kind of like Darwin's finches, only the Monolophosauruses that had the right adaptations are actually able to survive on that island. And survival means food. So how are those Monolophosauruses gonna find themselves?
So they adapt to start to eat fruits, I guess?
Some food, well, let's look at what's on the menu. As we see in Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, there aren't a lot of things to eat on that island. The game is mostly filled with Koopa Troopas, the shells of which can't be swallowed, piranha plants, tap-taps, and lava blogs, which Yoshi can't eat, and Shy Guys, which may or may not be native to the island in the first place. In short, the actual edible meat on the island is relatively sparse, meaning that the Monolophosaurus, a carnivorous dinosaur, would have to start broadening out its eating habits to the local fruit, the local fish. But the Monolophosaurus has small arms. It can't be climbing trees to get the fruits that we see growing on them in Yoshi's Island, like mangoes and bananas, so what can it do? Well, it can either develop a long neck, or, better yet, a long tongue that allows it to get both fruit and the fast-flying Goonies and Gusties of the island. And then what about fish? Well, there's plenty of cheap-cheeps in the ocean, but Monolophosauruses don't really swim. Well, we better start developing smooth skin, which will serve it better in an environment where it needs to move through the water. Notice that Yoshis aren't particularly good at swimming. They can when they need to, but it's not just their natural thing. That is adaptation at its finest. And finally, what about their coloration? Why do they come in so many different colors, like bright reds and vibrant greens, but also faded blues and browns? Again, it's adaptation. Super Mario World 2 shows us just how colorful Yoshi's Island is, with bright red flowers, big green jungle plants, but also massive systems of gray-blue caves and brown mountains. For Yoshis needing food wherever they can get it on this island, they evolved to feature a huge range of colors in order to survive. Remember, they're communal. They're working together in a lot of cases to pool their food together. And thus, we have how a carnivorous, bipedal, big-nosed Monolophosaurus would, over generations, slowly turn into the neon-colored, omnivorous, long-tongued Yoshisaurus Munchakoopa. Which leads us finally to the biggest question of all, the eggs. How is every Yoshi able to lay eggs? For that, I point you all in the direction of another reptile, the New Mexican whiptail, a species of lizard that is all female and still reproduces. That's right, 0 males. Suck on that, Bechtel test. Through a form of asexual reproduction called parthenogenesis, this lizard is able to double the number of chromosomes in their reproductive cells twice before cell division begins, giving their eggs the right number of chromosomes.
Dragon Ball!
And at the rate Yoshis are pooping out eggs, I don't know, maybe we chalk that one up to the miracles of nature. However, not everyone was totally happy with that theory, because
Yep. So some species can exist and reproduce with only one gender. Some species, 2 genders. Some species, 36,000.
At the start of the episode, I gloss over what is one of the biggest parts of the Yoshi debate online. Is Yoshi a dinosaur, or is he actually a dragon? Which may feel like a ridiculous question. Yoshi is clearly a dinosaur. Not only did we prove what kind he is, but he lives in Dinosaur Land. At least according to Super Mario World 1 and 2. Why would you name the land after dinosaurs if the main animal that lives there isn't a dinosaur? In the Nintendo official guidebook of Super Mario World, Yoshi is referred to as a, editors can, translation magic? There we go. Quote, gluttony dinosaur Yoshi, who eats the minions of the Demon King Bowser, is a powerful ally to Mario. And in most of his other appearances, like Super Smash Bros. And Super Smash Bros. Melee, he is referred to explicitly as a dinosaur. How? How is this even a discussion? Well, when you...
Alright, I can give a simple answer. Translations. Different languages. Just like how I said, 恐龙, fearful, fearsome dinosaurs. Oh, sorry, fearsome dragons, aka dinosaurs. Liu, long, you know.
appeared in as many games as Yoshi has, it's easy for a few contradictions to slip through the cracks. In our previous episode, I was only able to find 2 occurrences of Yoshi being called a dragon, both of them within the same game. In Super Mario World, despite living in Dinosaur Land, Yoshi refers to himself as Super Dragon Yoshi, at least according to this sign outside of his house. He also appears on that game's Dragon coins, so I just chalked it up to a translation error and I moved on. However, going deeper into original Japanese source materials, you start to see that the word dragon appears more and more. For instance, the manual for Super Mario World Super Mario Advance 2 introduces Yoshi by saying, quote, a dragon named Yoshi, or a dragon calling himself Yoshi. Alright, so maybe the dragon thing only appears in older games? Well, wrong again. He also refers to himself as a dragon as recently as Super Mario Galaxy 2. On a sign, he explicitly says, Yoshi, the Space Dragon. Then you have things like his final smash called Super Dragon in Smash Bros. Brawl and 4 Wii U, which causes him to sprout wings and breathe fire. So what gives? There's tons of evidence suggesting that he's a dinosaur, and yet there are plenty of instances of him being classified as a dragon as well. And it doesn't appear to be as simple as, oh, it was just a translation thing, or, oh, those were just the older games. It seems like we're back at square one. So, which is it, Nintendo? I don't think this could be more convoluted if you tried. Who do you think you are? The FNAF series? Well, having exhausted all the direct evidence that I can...
Five Nights at Freddy's! FNAF!
See, I think it's time we look to other sources. Indirect sources. See, throughout the Mario games, Yoshi isn't the only dinosaur-like creature that we encounter. So maybe by looking more closely at creatures in the games that share resemblances to Yoshi, we might be able to get closer to the answer we seek. Let's start by looking at Dory, a plesiosaur that first appears in Super Mario 64. Back then, Dory was nowhere close to resembling a Yoshi. However, as time has gone on, she has more and more taken on Yoshi-like characteristics. Fast forward to New Super Mario Bros. In 2006, and suddenly you can see that Dory is looking a lot more familiar. There's also Plessy from Super Mario 3D World in 2013, who, despite the name Plessy, is ironically enough not a plesiosaur. Seriously, Nintendo, you've got to get a handle on your dinosaur knowledge. It's just embarrassing at this point. Like Yoshi, Plessy is bipedal, making it more likely based on the Nothosaur, an ancestor to the plesiosaur. So, looking at these creatures and the real-world family tree, it's likely the semi-aquatic Plessy gave rise to a branching pathway. One half went fully aquatic. That became Dory. The other half went fully terrestrial, and we got Yoshi. And if the physical similarities aren't enough, Yoshi, Plessy, and Dory's names all have a connection. Not the English names, the Japanese ones. All of their Japanese names are specifically marked with the ending shi. Dory's official Japanese name is Doshi, and Plessy's is Pureshi. Yoshi is the only one who got to keep his name in the Western release. So between the name similarities and the physical similarities, it feels like we're building a family tree. So then this would seem to confirm that Yoshi is a dinosaur, right? No. Neither plesiosaurs nor nothosaurs are technically considered dinosaurs. Instead, they're referred to as sauropterygian reptiles, ancient marine reptiles that ruled the oceans while dinosaurs roamed the land. They're thought to be the ancestors to dinosaurs. So, Yoshi's a descendant of the ancient marine reptiles that we've seen in the games, making him pretty darn close to dinosaur status, right? Well, no, because...
And it's quite cool that they are hanging out with your ancestors in a game. Super Mario game.
There's one teeny tiny fire-breathing problem, Bahamut. Only appeared in one game back in 1996, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Brilliant game, actually might be my favorite Mario game of all time. Anyway, in it, Bahamut is a massive ancient dragon who serves as one of the enemies, but just like Plessy, he shares the same bulbous head, the same color pattern, he's even bipedal. Looking at him, other than the wings, it's hard to deny that Bahamut looks more similar to Yoshi than either Plessy or Dory. However, what's more important than his appearance is the fact that his Japanese name is the same as Dory's, Doshi. Heard that right,
Doshi.
Bahamut. The ancient, aggressive, fire-breathing dragon shares the same Japanese name with a peaceful, friendly water taxi, and thus some sort of lineage
What
with
is-
Yoshi. All of this means that honestly, we're no closer to solving the mystery. Darn it, Nintendo! No matter what way you slice it, Yoshi
Sorry.
Other category. He's bipedal like Bahamut and Plessy. He can swim just like Plessy and Dory. We've seen him grow wings to make him even more closely resemble Bahamut, and he shares the same head and color patterns of all three. How am I supposed to be able to put him into one category? But that's when it hit me. What if we didn't have to choose? What if the reason Yoshi doesn't fit into one or the other is because he's both? What if Yoshi is a hybrid? I know this sounds like a cop-out, but it's actually a really fascinating part of the biological world. A common hybrid that we all just accept at this point is the mule, the offspring of a female horse and a male donkey. These creatures were often bred because they were stronger than a horse of a similar size, but also had the endurance of a donkey. But mules aren't the only example of a hybrid animal. There are literally hundreds, like the liger, the pizzly bear, the wolpen. All of this is possible because, despite the animals being from different species, they come from the same genus, meaning that their DNA is similar enough for their offspring to still be viable. That's also, sadly, why we'll never see a monkey eagle anytime soon. As you might expect, these hybrids
But having said that, if I'm not wrong, it's very difficult for the offsprings for them to have their own offsprings.
inherit the traits of both parents, both in terms of appearance, but also in terms of the behaviors that have been coded into their DNA. For example, a hybrid of two migrating birds might develop a third, unique migration route that combines the ones of both of its parents. This concept of inheriting partial traits from parents of related species would explain why Yoshi doesn't fit neatly with either the dragon or the dinosaur category. Like all hybrids, he's adopted abilities from both sides. He's taken on the main form of the dragon Bahamut, but lost the wings thanks to the mixing of the flightless Dory and Plessy. We've actually seen an example of this type of hybrid in the games already. Loyal theorists, I present to you Rex, a dinosaur-like creature with dragon wings that looks like a cross between Bahamut and Plessy. So there you have it, friends. The reason Nintendo can't make up their minds about whether Yoshi is a dinosaur or a dragon is because he's technically both. Trust me, guys, just make the answer canon. It means that you never have to be wrong again, because this time I did not miss a single piece of evidence at all. Stop. No, stop looking at that. Nope. Turn the camera away. No, stop it. Yes, I know.
Yup, the red arrow.
But there's still the thing on his back. Is it a shell? Is it a saddle? How does this affect our overall explanation? Well, in the original art from 1993, it labels the thing on Yoshi's back a saddle, and its flat appearance, coupled with the use of it as a place for Mario to sit while riding Yoshi, supports that thing. However, in more modern appearances, that thing on Yoshi's back has started to change shape, become raised, smaller, more rounded. The official Nintendo Japan website currently refers to it as a shell. Quote, even though there's a shell on his back, we actually don't know whether Yoshi's a dinosaur or a turtle. Screw you, Nintendo. Just throw another reptile into the mix, why don't ya? Why not add snake in there too, for good measure? And annoyingly, it's not a translation issue either, as the word they use for shell
Is that dragon? Dinosaur? Turtle! Sorry.
the same one that they use for the shells that we see during Mario Kart, which opens us up not just to real-life animal comparisons, but an in-game one, because the shells in Mario Kart are confirmed to belong to one of the franchise's most notable villains, the Koopa Troopas. And that's not where the similarities end either. If you compare Dry Bones' example of a Koopa skeleton to the faces of freshly hatched Yoshisaurs, they both have a tooth-like bump in the mouth that seems to disappear as both species eat and grow. Koopas also have major species variations: Boom Booms, Hammer Brothers, Lakitus, even Bowser and the Koopalings, all of which are visibly distinguishable from each other. Yoshi would have had plenty of different Koopa ancestor options for hybridization. Maybe the shell of a Koopa shrank due to being a hybrid, or maybe he started with a Koopa like Spike, whose shell doesn't wrap around his whole torso. Hybridization with Koopas would also explain why, despite being related to the dinosaurs and dragons we've discussed, Yoshi is so much smaller than everyone else. And here's the thing, you don't even have to take my word for it. In the 2010 Super Mario history book, Takashi Tezuka states that, quote, Yoshi was originally supposed supposed to be a type of Koopa. That saddle you see on his back was actually his shell. Turns out Tezuka has been Team Turtle from the start. But honestly, it all makes sense. I don't really know how I couldn't put this one together sooner. I literally gave myself the biggest clue possible in the previous episode. Nintendo's official name for the Yoshi dinosaur, his scientific name is T. Yoshisaur Munchakoopas. And that is coming from the official 1993 Nintendo character guide, by the way. They literally put Koopa in Yoshi's name. Should have been obvious. No matter how you slice it though, all of it is putting one of Mario's closest allies into a bit of a compromising position. The interviews about the shell being a shell and not a saddle are quite recent. The design clearly changed toward shell later on, and with more and more interviews bringing up the Koopa connection specifically, is Nintendo trying to tell us something? Bowser may have almost caused the extinction of the Yoshis back in Yoshi's Island, but Mario hasn't always been the best of friends to Yoshi's either. How long until Yoshi has had enough? How long until those evil Bahamut and Koopa roots come up to the surface? Maybe one day we'll drop Yoshi into a pit for that little extra jump, and that'll be the final straw. He'll betray us, as we've done to him so many times before, finally taking his rightful place at Bowser's side.
Although I wouldn't be
To be fair, sometimes you have to recognize enough is enough. When someone crosses the line way too far and pushes you off the cliff, well, people have boundaries.
expecting any true Yoshi on Mario violence, because the truth is, every one of these kidnappings is completely fake. Think about it. Peach takes no action to protect herself. She just lets Bowser take her. No resistance, no running away, no emotion. And Mario, he also does nothing to prevent it. He even invites Bowser to every kart race like they're best buds. Why would that happen unless it was entirely fictional? Just take a look at Mario 3. When you look closely, it's clear that the entire thing is a stage play. You've got a rising curtain at the start. The platforms cast shadows onto the sky, which wouldn't happen unless it's a sky backdrop. The platforms are also screwed into said backdrop, or they're hung from the ceiling by wires, and at the end of each stage, you literally run off stage into the dark wings. But to top it all off, this kind of staged kidnapping actually exists in the real world. Yes, you can pay to have someone kidnap you. And according to former customers, it allowed them to escape the feeling of the mundane in their lives. Like, say, allowing a bored princess to feel some excitement, or a lowly plumber to become a hero, and a turtle dragon that gets paid for the privilege. All three of them have been lying to us since the start.
At this point, you'd think we'd be able to just leave the Mario franchise alone. I mean, is no corner of
Alright, that escalated quickly.
the Mushroom Kingdom sacred?
Alright, I think this is the last theory video. 加油! It's a long video.
No, it's not. And let's face it, if my Mario theories have shown us anything, it's that Luigi is probably the best of the bunch. Although most of the 160 plus games he's appeared in have kept him in the background. Yeah, 160. I was surprised too. But he's not there to just fill out the doubles for Mario's tennis games or ride in the back of Mario's carts. We get the sense that he's an awesome guy. Sure, he may be a coward, but even in the face of fear, he still gets the job done. He clearly loves, admires, and respects his brother, as we see countless times throughout the series. Specifically on Star Hill in Super Mario RPG, and from his journal in Paper Mario. I mean, the guy's willing to suffer through haunted mansions and horrendous spin-off titles whenever Mario goes missing. And he's even been known to cry tears of joy when he successfully saves his brother. He's just cool, more psychologically deep than pretty much any other character in this franchise, with fears, hopes, dreams, wishes. And let's face it, he wears green. Game Theory's color is also green. Match made in heaven. I kinda like the guy. You know what? It's long past time that we give Luigi some well-deserved love. And yet, once again, as we've seen time and time again in this franchise, looks may be deceiving. Because in researching the lovable underdog Luigi, one particular appearance of his stood out from the rest. If we're talking about really diving deep to find out what makes Luigi tick, we need to look no further than a game where we get to see all the sides of him. All two sides, that is. Because the most insightful title for talking about Luigi is Super Paper Mario. Admittedly, while the character may seem flat at first, let me tell you that there are a lot of dimensions to explore here. Get it? They're all paper jokes. I'm sure you got it, and you're just cringing and hoping that the script moves on. Hey PewDiePie, put this in your next cringe compilation, huh? In case you haven't stumbled into this particular corner of the Mario games, I can't really blame you. This game is perhaps the most unusual in the official Mario lineup. Outside of the gameplay being completely unique and completely bonkers, requiring you to hop into and out of 2D and 3D environments. The tone of this game is just so much darker, so much more sarcastic, and incredibly cynical. Whole worlds get ripped to shreds, leaving only nothingness in their place. Mario and the gang quite literally travel to hell, known here as the Underwear. And breaking all rules, Bowser and Peach pretty much get married. You know all that creepy music I used in my early FNAF theories? A bunch came from this game. Yeah, we've come a long way from your parents' Mario athletic theme. Regardless, even if you didn't play Super Paper Mario, here's what you need to know. The big baddies for this game aren't Bowser and Peach, it's Count Black. Not JonTron Black. Black. And his, like, totally angsty counterculture business associate, Nastasia. At an early point in our story, Luigi finds himself to be the first responder on the scene of Count Black's castle, where he gets duped by two Goombas who lead him straight to Nastasia. What happens next is why this game will end up being important for Luigi. Nastasia uses her hypnotic laser eyes to instantly hypnotize him, turning him into the evil Mr. L.
Mr. L.
Nope, Mr. L, an arrogant villain with an attraction to Peach and a jealousy of Mario's jumping abilities. He fights viciously against Mario and the gang in multiple forms across the entirety of the game, up to and including the final boss. He's violent, he's aggressive, and he is out for blood. And if you're upset that I didn't put spoiler tags before revealing that this guy is Luigi, well then, I just have no words for you. No words, I say! Now, to understand why this is important for Luigi, we have to talk about hypnosis. In all the official game wikis, Nastasia is referred to as having instantaneous hypnotic powers, and Luigi is referred to as being hypnotized. In-game, though, Nastasia refers to her powers as both hypnosis and as brainwashing. So, which is it? We need to start off by figuring out the differences between the two. In most definitions, brainwashing and hypnosis are different, but they're not necessarily completely unrelated. It's probably best to think of brainwashing as a spectrum. You can brainwash people in a whole bunch of different ways, with some being way more extreme than others. When you think about brainwashing, I'm sure you think about things like the Winter Soldier in Captain America, or worse, cult leaders who brainwash their followers into doing crazy things, like fearing babies, toting nuclear warheads. Actually, yeah, I'm not brainwashed and that thing scares me, so good job, cult. Anyway, there are three major types of brainwashing that exist: educational, persuasive, and suggestive, with hypnosis being one of those stops on the spectrum. The most extreme type of brainwashing is known as the education method, and it's the kind of stuff that you see in the movies and most associate with the concept of brainwashing. These are your Winter Soldiers or COD Black Ops styles of mind control, where torture and isolation are working to alter the way the mind feels and thinks. As a result, it's the only type of brainwashing that literally reprograms the concepts of right and wrong in the human brain. It takes weeks, oftentimes months, for someone to be affected by the educational method, which is why cults indoctrinate people over the course of years until they're finally ready to ask them to drink the Kool-Aid. Literally.
Ooh. If you know, you know.
One of the most famous cases of this kind of brainwashing is the Patty Hearst case. In case you don't know this one, 19-year-old Patty Hearst was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army in 1974. After she was kidnapped, she was left in a closet for weeks on end with nothing but Liberation Army pamphlets. Every time they let her out of the closet, they talked to her about politics, threatening to kill her, until one day she announced that she wanted to join their cause. After that, she became one of the most vocal representatives of the Symbionese Liberation Army. She even changed her name to Tanya before robbing a bank, kidnapping two people, and even building bombs to help murder police officers. And this wasn't an act to make nice with her captors. She never attempted to escape and even went to prison for her actions as a member of the army. So you can see that the educational method is pretty scary, but it's also pretty hard to pull off. For example, during the Korean War, North Korea tried to re-educate tens of thousands of South Korean and American prisoners of war in special camps designed to brainwash prisoners into being sympathetic to the North Korean cause. At the end of the war, though, only a few hundred POWs, including only 21 Americans, were reported to have voluntarily remained loyal to North Korea. Long story short, this kind of brainwashing is not what we're seeing in Super Paper Mario. This takes years and usually involves extreme physical and mental torture. What we see happen in the
Yep, it's not instantaneous. Bah! It takes a long time.
game is practically instantaneous. Nastasia barely has to blink her laser eyes to change Luigi into Mr. L. It's not possible that this is the educational method. So we move down the spectrum to persuasive brainwashing. And this is the form that all of us, myself included, have gone through. Have you ever gotten a compliment on something that you wore, so you started to wear it more? Or stopped from doing something because your parents yelled at you? Well then,
Yep, this is persuasive. This is self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. And when someone say that, hey, you lack control, you need to control yourself, you need to chill, it sets a narrative that you are unable to control. It sets a narrative that even though you are in control, people twist and manipulate the situation, the wording, to set the narrative that even though you are in control of the situations, you are unable to control yourself. It sets a narrative that because everybody says so, because everybody say about you, and it sucks. It truly sucks. Those are toxic friends, to be honest with you.
Congratulations on a successful brainwashing. Another name for persuasive brainwashing is simply classical conditioning, something a lot of
Classical conditioning. Persuasiveness.
us are familiar with, where our behavior changes because we get a reward or punishment for doing something. Our beliefs aren't different, but our expectation for reward is. Think about it this way. When you bribe someone to go against their morals, since that's a scenario I'm sure happens to you all the time, that person probably knows what they're doing isn't right, but they also know that they're going to get paid for it. So they're acting based on where they're going to be rewarded. You're not changing their moral code, you're just changing their expectation for reward every time they break that moral.
Or vice versa, punishments, or looked down upon, or ridiculed, or being mocked, or just being ostracized. I give you my personal experience about it. My taekwondo friends, my brothers, okay, they often say that, hey, I need control, chill, relax. When I do the same exact thing to them, they will say that, why are you doing that? I'm being chilled. Stop doing that. You see, there's a double standard. Vice versa, every single time I have conversation with them, practice with them, martial art with them, they'll say that I'm unable to control. I need to chill, I need to relax, I don't need to be tense. Vice versa, if I was to do martial art with other groups of individuals, okay? Light sparring, not even heavy contact sparring, light sparring. None of them said control, none of them said you are tense, none of them said that you need to chill or relax, none of them said you need to cool down. You get the point, don't you? This sort of friends, well, I still treat them as brothers, but you know, there should be a boundary. There should be a cognitive boundary because you know classical conditioning from them. You know, these are what you call it, toxic friends. Yeah. And when you call them out, they will be like, "What do you mean? That's all your fault."
So is that what's happening to Luigi? Again, no. The dialogue at the beginning of the game is clear. Nastasia and Count Black haven't offered Luigi anything to cross over to the dark side and become Mr. L. There's also no major threat either. Once Luigi becomes Mr. L, he starts actively making evil decisions all on his own, without Nastasia interfering. So clearly that's not it either, meaning we have to move to the third and final form of brainwashing, suggestive brainwashing, aka hypnosis. As I mentioned, Nastasia herself says that her power is hypnosis. But what does that actually mean? Personally, I always thought that hypnosis was just a magic trick. There are plenty of people out there, though, who practice hypnosis as a profession, and they'll tell you a much different story. According to statistics from the Society of Clinical Hypnosis, hypnosis is a state of selective, focused attention, and about 85% of people can achieve some kind of hypnotic state. But still, this is all just a bunch of malarkey, right? Well, no. Last month, I went to a YouTube event in New York where Jacksepticeye and I happened to win a taco challenge judged by the world-renowned chef, Rachel Ray. Sorry, I had no other opportunity to really brag about that, so I figured I'd shove it in here. But more to the point,
Yeah!
we got to see a real hypnosis demonstration done on YouTubers who I know and am personal friends with. And let me tell you, these guys weren't acting. And of course, because it happened to YouTubers, duh, it's all over YouTube. Cue the clip. At first, it starts out fine. The hypnotist just asks them to relax. That's nice. Then they start falling over. Then they start licking ice cream, aggressively. Then there come the cows, that of course have to be milked, enthusiastically. Joey's name gets switched to E-I-E-I-O and Fousey 2 becomes a fairy. It was a weird day. Afterward, you can see in Joey Graceffa's vlog that he felt awake and aware during the whole experience.
Like in the moment, like my mind was like, oh, you can do this, like this is what you're supposed to do.
Looking at my own personal experience watching the show, it seems pretty clear that the hypnosis happened pretty fast, as quickly as you saw in the video. It's just a matter of finding people whose minds are open to accept the power of suggestion. And look at Luigi, he's a
Yep, that's exactly what it means. People, they are open to the suggestions. If you block those suggestions off, or you have this mental barrier or mental tolerance or mental resistance that is built up over the years of your personal life, it can help, push it off, or reduce it, or delay it.
textbook candidate. He's used to taking direction from everyone. He's been controlled by people all his life. He's already used to taking action based on what's suggested to him. This is also definitely the closest thing we see to Nastasia's powers in Super Paper Mario. She's described as having instantaneous hypnotic powers, which is a little faster than what happened at the YouTube event, but frankly, not by all that much. The hypnotist wasn't shooting hypno lasers out of his eyeballs or anything. We also see characters in the game going in and out of this hypnotic trance. Luigi flips back and forth between himself and Mr. L as fast as you see YouTubers falling asleep and waking back up in the video. Okay, great, so Luigi is hypnotized. That explains what happens to him and why he becomes the evil Mr. L, right? Actually, no. It turns out that Luigi's behavior can't be explained away by hypnosis. Listen to this clip from the beginning of my YouTuber Hypno Sesh.
Stare straight ahead just for a moment. I'll count to 3, but not before. When I do reach 3, all you have to do is just close your eyes. That's all I'm going to ask you to do. 1, 2, and 3. Close your eyes. Good. Open them back up. There you go. There's no lotion, potion, magic, pixie dust. Harry Potter's not going to run on stage with a magic wand. There is no feeling of hypnosis. All hypnosis feels like is what you imagine it to be.
Hypnosis is what you imagine it to be. This is really important because once you're in a trance, you're essentially only as hypnotized as you let yourself become. In my research, one of the most common questions that hypnotherapists get is, will I be forced to do things that I don't want to do? And the answer that they always give is no. That even if the hypnotherapist wanted to make the patient do something that they wouldn't otherwise do, they wouldn't be able to. Quote, if you hypnotize someone, they'll not do anything against their morals. And here's another quote. No, there's no loss of control. Hypnosis allows clients to be more focused and actually achieve more, not less control. Remember, you're not changing what they believe in, you're not bribing them, and you're not forcing them. You're just making suggestions that, based on the patient's existing morals, sound like a really good idea. Yeah, Joey, you milk that cow. You milk it good and hard. So what's that mean for Mr. L and Luigi? Well, considering Luigi has been hypnotized and that those under hypnosis won't break their moral codes, that only leaves one possibility. That Luigi isn't acting against his own will in Super Paper Mario when he becomes Mr. L. When Nastasia...
Yep, Mr. L have always been in him for the longest time. It just out.
hypnotizes him, his morals aren't changing. Under that sweet, doofy Luigi exterior we all know and love has existed Mr. L all along. He didn't need to be re-educated, he didn't even need to be threatened. He just needed to find himself in a hypnotic trance where he lost all his inhibitions and fears, and for once in his life wasn't afraid to show how he really felt. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Sarcasm for Bowser, feelings for Peach, open antagonism for Mario. When he falls into a trance, the real Luigi comes out, unearthing what seems to be some pretty intense feelings for the gang. They might not think he's in control, that this is all some alternate persona, but he most definitely is. That man, Mr. L, is the true form of Luigi, his thoughts and his ambitions.
And he's not the only one. The other notable palette swap doubles partner, Daisy, also has a bit of a dark side, and it may explain one of the things that bugged me most about Mario Wonder. Before Daisy became Peach's lifelong doubles partner, she was the princess of her very own kingdom, Sarasaland. But something about that always felt odd. Sarasaland is mostly a kingdom of insects, spiders, and octopi. Why do they have a human princess? I mean, I know Peach rules over a bunch of mushrooms, but they're at least human-ish. And her name is Toadstool, tying those two things together. So shouldn't Daisy's be the same? I believe the answer is yes, and it's all thanks to Mario wonder. Take a look at the new kingdom introduced, the Flower Kingdom. It's full of flower-like subjects, most notably the poplins, humanoid toad-like creatures with buds on their heads that can bloom into flowers. But not just any flowers. Specifically, they are daisies. Plus, look at the guy who's currently running the Flower Kingdom, Prince Florian. He is a caterpillar in a land that is full of birds, fish, and a bunch of others who will eat what? Insects. It would make way more sense for Florian to be the true prince of the insect kingdom of Sarasaland and for Daisy to be the princess of the Flower Kingdom. So
Oh, actually, did they swap? Did they make a mistake or something?
what happened? Well, in short, Daisy happened. Yeah, she kinda sucks. In the manga, Wario even points out that she's quite familiar with the aura of evil, and we know that the Poplins don't take kindly to selfish behavior. So it appears we have a good old-fashioned coup on our hands. The Poplins, tired of her attitude, kicked her out and put Florian in her place, leaving Daisy ruling over the only kingdom that had space for her, Sarasaland. Until, of course, she's saved by Mario and introduced to the rest of the Mushroom Kingdom gang, where, as we've talked about today, her villainous behavior fits right in. But hey,
Okay, so coup d'etat to end this entire video from the game theorists. I didn't expect that.
it's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
Game over.
Well, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this long 2-hour plus videos. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you. Subscribe. Oh my god, it's actually 2-hour plus. Oh, I'm drinking so much water just to keep myself awake. Oh gosh, I'm so tired. I need like a half an hour nap. Good night. Thank you. Subscribe. Thank you so much.